And Mark is our scholar on the ground.
Good evening. Can you stand one more bloke? Yep.
Two more.
Two more blokes. I'm only going to be one of them, so I'll take responsibility for me. So research. I'm kind of cruising that area between the hard, calloused hand people and the academic guys with the white coats and the clipboards. And we haven't really impressed them very well as a movement. Biodynamic research is demonstrating occasional small differences, I would say would be a very quick summary of a hell of a lot of work. But I'm more interested in dramatic things. It's because I've got a little brain that likes exciting things and doesn't have that attention span. So I found a few exciting things. I'll share some of them with you. Do I need to talk to that? I'll talk to this. Okay. Anyone know what that is? It is a potato. Congratulations. Is it a healthy potato? Let's pan out a bit. I hope you can see from these various rows that some seem to be a little bit more shaggy and some a little more sparse. Now, a gardener has certain interest to make the non-shaggy ones just as big and healthy as the others. The researcher is interested to know why is there a difference. It's all part of this field. This is at Oaklands Park, a field that my wife used for her community composting scheme. And with the help of her father, we did this experiment. Now, those lines don't exist in the world, but they're to help us understand that in each of those, between those yellow lines, there are 2 rows of potatoes. And each row has 22 seed potatoes that were chitted at random. And in the middle there, that's the row we planted on the 29th of March at 10 a.m., 2006, because at that time, this is what was happening in the heavens. The thing of prime, I don't know if you can orientate yourselves onto a horoscope so quickly, but essentially you are in the middle, that's planet Earth. We're looking out to the various planets on the periphery, and then those 3 outer circles are different ways of looking at the zodiac. Some by the constellations, other 30 degrees equal. Don't worry your head, think about this bit up here. You'll see the sun and the moon are together. It happened to be a complete eclipse, and so we wanted to use that middle row on the day of an eclipse. And we planted on the 26th, the 27th, the 28th, our big day, the 29th, 30th, 31st, and April Fool's Day. All at 10 o'clock in the morning. This is what scientists do, try and keep things equal, an equal piece of land, to see what happened. Cool, that went off without me. And on the 8th of August, we harvested all at the same time. That's my father-in-law, Eric Hoyland. And we hoiked the tatties, we lifted them up, and we kept the potatoes from each row separate so we could measure their characteristics. Don't let me down now, machine. Click, click, click. Yay! So those 2 sets of double boxes, these 2 guys, are the 2 rows that were harvested on the day of the eclipse. This is just one of the rows from the day before. Where should I point this to be most effective? At you. Right. These are the results. It's a lot to take in, so I'm going to give you the punchline. Batteries and technology, please don't let me down. There we go. So the 12 rows before and after the solar eclipse, we've averaged them out to keep it simple. I'll show you a bit more difference later. We're 1.5 around the average. So but the potatoes in the 2 rows during the eclipse were minus 11 compared to the average, a significant difference. Now, Monty, I think any farmer who knew they could stay in bed and get 30% more potatoes would be quite engaged in the conversation. I don't know where you are, but this is my contribution to Oh, sorry, it goes or it doesn't go. And going back, that's a sneak preview of the next thing. Can you forward this without this? Because it's becoming a little bit frustrating. Can we go back? Backwards, please. Okay, so that's a graphical representation of the potato harvest, and it's quite gratifying for us that there's a huge difference in yield planting at the time of an eclipse. Now, I chose an eclipse because the heavens are doing all sorts of things at one time. As Joni Mitchell asked, does the moon play only silver? This thing's going retrograde, there's moons swelling and shrinking, to try and get from that symphony something we can rely on isn't very easy, in fact. But the eclipses is like a great big kettle drum that just drowns everything else out. That's why I'm using these. Okay, now, can we improve on such an experiment? It's the basic tenet of biodynamics from Dr. Steiner that what's going up on the heavens is effective. It's not some superstition that we've dreamt up. It's real. So this is a different eclipse, quite an important eclipse, 1998. For those of you who like a little bit of esoterica, 3 Christ cycles after the 1899 Kali Yuga. But let's move on. 2 o'clock in the morning, we've got another area that's worth looking at. Again, a complete eclipse down below the horizon, 2 in the morning. So what's happened in this instance is that water, just water, has been shaken at carefully marked times, at carefully marked intervals up until the eclipse, through the eclipse, and after the eclipse. At the same time, water with potentized gold has been shaken at the very same time. These two cohorts of shaken water have then been stored for 3 months, and then germination tests have taken place, i.e. that water has been put onto 100 wheat seeds, and the most simple part of this was to see how many germinated. And since it's 100 seeds, we can give that figure as a percentage. So the seedlings are ready for evaluation at the end of their growth at the bottom there. A little bit of Italian, because this was done in Italy. But I guess you can work out what Massimo eclipse is. Any takers? Correct. You're a genius. Well done. It's a very easy language. Again, with the dark continuous line, we have the germination with just water. So the germination solely at this point is dramatically down at the time of an eclipse. We can simplify it for cartoon minds like mine is seeds don't like eclipses. But for the gold, the discontinuous line, the effect that we see with just the water is absent. Now, lots of questions come up like, was this well done, etc. Let's take it on face value because we can lose a lot of energy and time on those questions. We're dealing with those in the workshop. But taken on face value, what's going on? Why has potentized gold nullified the effect of the eclipse? My hypothesis that I would like to see whether it works with the way you understand things is that gold has always been understood as the representative of the sun on the earth. When the sun is switched off, to all intents and purposes, by the moon, we can replace it with a microcosmic equivalent. This is the hypothesis. And I think it's a very useful way of considering what the preparations are. Now, the preparations, in my opinion, and also, I would say backed up by the sort of ho-hum results in the research, is that they really have an effect when they are addressing an unbalance. If we live in a place where the sun hardly ever shines and it's cold, something that replaces the sun impulse or the light impulse is going to have an effect. But if it's already very warm and very light, all it can do is support something that's already happening and you can't get beyond 100%. You can begin to burn seeds with 501, for instance. I think that's something that does happen in South Africa and is very unlikely to happen in Gloucestershire, I can assure you. But if we can find the unbalance, the preparations can bring us to balance. This is the way I'm beginning to see things, and I'd like to see and hear back from you at some point whether that resonates with yourselves and your own experience. So, now, these are basically, oh yeah, maybe another little piece there. The calendar. The calendar is interesting because it's looking at what is predictable, but beyond our control. The planets are going to go where they want to go, whether we'd prefer them to go somewhere else or not. It's not always party time for the planets. Sometimes there's difficult arrangements. Sometimes it's quite benign. The preparations allow us to be in control is maybe a little over heavy, but have some way of addressing what we cannot address in the macrocosm. And I am pretty convinced that when I read the agriculture course, which is a tricky document, I imagine some of you struggled over a passage or two, not just question marks in the side, but whole lectures just are baffling. But when considered in the aspect of the as above, so below, the macrocosm and the microcosm, many of those difficulties have, for me, resolved. Try it on if you haven't already. Right, now, Rudolf Steiner, bad news, he's dead. He died in 1925. A lot has happened, including GMO, including radioactivity, non-natural, etc. Many things that are current now, he didn't address. Poor guy, you know, he was very ill, he had 8 lectures. What was he going to tell us? Can we do anything about GMO? This is usually something where we fall fairly supine, thinking Pandora's out of the box, and there's no way of getting Pandora back in. Maybe you're up for GMO, I don't know. Personally, I'm really kind of nervous about it. I want to show you an experiment that was done in Italy with corn, maize. This picture is the only one I could get from Italy. It was again done in Italy, of the actual plants that were used. But so I've stolen some images from Google to demonstrate the principles behind. So there is yellow corn. In this experiment, the yellow corn or maize was used, and yellow is genetically dominant over the white corn that is also in this experiment. And this yellow corn happened to be GM corn. The other participant in this was the white corn. And in terms of genes, it's recessive. Yellow will always trump white. But this was biodynamically grown. Now, there was a seed bath given that was already considered to be something that would help repel GM. Now, someone's been awful cocky and confident to think that they've got something to address this seemingly intractable problem. But there you have it. It's true. So the seeds of the yellow corn were bathed in this GMO repel. The white, sorry, did I say yellow? Cancel that, add white, carry on. So a row of white, a row of yellow, row of white, BD white, GM yellow, side by side. Corn is a plant that will cross-pollinate. So just with our Mendelian single gene hat on, what should happen? One dominant, one recessive. Pollen being shared. You would expect that the daughter generation from the yellow corn would be predominantly, if not completely, yellow. From the daughter generation of the white corn, you would expect, on a 3-to-1, just crossing those two over, that the white corn would be roughly 25%. rules of thumb, ho-hum. And the controls, i.e. the white corn, and that had none of these sprays on them, the seed baths, and then there was a spray during the pollination period. They demonstrated this was in fact the proportion of outcome of the daughter generation. What did happen? From the daughter generation of the yellow corn, 62% went white, 38% was yellow. And the daughter, have I said yellow when I should have said white again? I've got a feeling I did. Read that if confused. I did that when I wasn't nervous. From the daughter generation of the white corn, 2% yellow and 98% white. How is this possible? What is the thinking that would allow us to understand what happens when plants pollinate each other, that can enable us to intervene? 5 minutes to go. You've got 5 minutes to scratch your heads about this. How would you, if you're all on your own and empowered yourself to take on this hydra-headed monster, how would you design a preparation? Thanks, Richard. Can't see a bloody thing. I'm blinded. You're on your own. Go. 4 minutes, papers in. It's difficult. However, what I would like to also suggest, since I'm supposed to be doing something thought-provoking, I would like to suggest that those 8 lectures are a fraction of a % of Steiner's output. Steiner, I think, was essentially correct, almost up to Pope level. You know, he was pretty bloody good, and if not, I'm happy to give him the benefit of the doubt. Within all the other anthroposophical work, there are clues for the diligent and those who can stay awake that we can extract to address issues such as what happens in the worlds where the parts that we have incarnated are not incarnated, i.e. a plant, Steiner, he say, has a physical body and etheric body. Where is its soul? Where is its self? What happens when we create down here some kind of hodgepodge of its genetic material? What happens in the macrocosmic bodies? If that experiment with the germination in Italy is correct, and that we can replace from the microcosm things that are not available or kosher from the macrocosm, we can start thinking the right direction. Jess asked me to bring this experiment. I haven't got the final answer for you. But I think I'm convinced, and the rest is built up with hope, that in this very simple palette that Steiner gave us of the preparations, the agricultural organism, etc., we have clues on how to really address the issues not of 1924, but of 2014. I'm really holding out for that. Some of these experiments are so easy to do. This one cost €250,000 because at that time to do the test for GM traces was really prohibitively expensive. But when the guy, whose name is Enzo Nastati, said, I think I can do this, people were so worried they went deep into their pockets. Now it can be done very cheaply. Many labs will give you a GM report, you know, as quick as the weather forecast. So that's all I really want to bring. I just want to drop that little bit of hope and stimulate some thought about how we can take on some of the intractable issues, such as heavy metal pollution, radioactivity. If you're up for that kind of work, then there's a few of us doing it. Some of us hanging on by our fingernails to those who are shooting ahead and trying to understand it. But it's the sort of thing that's too important to be left to the experts. You are welcome to come and play. The Consider site, which is my little baby, is working to enable this collaborative research, please get involved.
Couple of minutes. Mark, thank you so much. There is a little bit of time. Does anybody have any questions? Yep.
Yeah, excuse me. I just thought that GM crops were sterile.
As far as I know, there is a terminator gene. This isn't my area of expertise, so there is a terminator gene which works with that has that effect of not being able to pass on the characteristics, but that isn't uniformly correct throughout. And the fact that there were controls here which showed that they weren't sterile makes me think that it wasn't used in this instance.
Any more? What was the
seed bath?
preparation? What was the seed bath preparation?
This is a very long story, and we haven't got time for it. You should have signed up for my workshop. Okay, just to put you in the right direction, which is, in fact, not about what I can do, the preparations can be assigned a planetary equivalent. Okay, so the ones that Steiner gave us was 507, the Valerian, Saturn. 502, the Venus preparation. The oak bark, probably Mars. You can set up schemas, and there's still arguments about how one-to-one it is, but you've got that possibility. Now, if you go to the biodynamic anthroposophical creation myth, occult science, where did plants enter our evolutionary time? I mean, this is deep in the yawn-making books, but this is where you got to go for the clues. So if you understand what was happening on old Sun, so-called, and you understand that Jupiter is now the remnants of that time, you've got the beginnings of the conceptual tools to begin to make such preparations. The story then gets richer and weirder, and that's one of the time when I can only slipstream other guys who've done the work and showed it's effective. I wouldn't bring this here just on that scanty theory, but my feeling is that the test of reality is what the plants report back to us. So I can begin to join the dots, and we'll do a bit more in our workshop, but I can't give a full satisfying answer there.
Thank you so much, Mark.